ladies and gentlemen, you are listening to the Whatnauts review show, where each week we have a different story to talk about. We cover all sorts of different mediums, different genres, like our little book club style podcast here. This week we are going to be talking about The Fifth Element. It's a classic sci-fi film, and the second week in our Shametember series, which we will mention more about in just a sec. My name is Kyle Springer. I am joined, as always, by Melissa Wilkinson.
Yep, it's me.
Yeah, it is you. You have not changed. You're not some
No.
robot or.
I bought a new pillow, a new decorative pillow for my bed that you can see. This is the only change in my life.
Change is a good thing sometimes. It's good. How's your weekend been? Because I talked to you last Friday for the captain's log, but what have you been up to this weekend?
I went on a drive-in adventure last night. I drove out into Illinois, an entire state away, to go to a drive-in theater.
I did not realize it was a whole state away.
Well, it's only 45 minutes,
I guess that's true,
but it is
still.
across state lines. Yeah, that makes it seem like such a big journey.
Yeah. Adventure. So you went and saw Tenet, because that's what you had said. I guess it was a Tenet double feature with that and the Jackie Robinson biopic.
Yeah, which this is the perk of the drive-in, is that they still schedule everything like it's olden times, and by olden times I mean, like, I don't know, 1968. Like, it's $10 to get in, you see the movie, everything's a double feature.
Right.
They didn't have another new movie to play with tenants. They're like, we're just playing you a movie from several years ago. It's free, stay if you want. But it was already like 10:30, almost 11 by the time Tenet ended. And I'm like, I can't stay here. I can't not get home until like 1 a.m. I have to go home.
So in a sentence or two, was Tenet good? Am I missing out by not saying it yet?
No, I'm saying it's good, but it isn't like,
it's a lot.
No, you have to like hazmat suit up and go to a theater, or like make your roommate drive you to wherever your nearest particular drive-in may be, even if that's 3 states away. It's good. It's solid. I'm glad I went. It was a movie.
Okay,
I'll say that it is much easier to understand than Primer.
Oh.
We've already watched Primer, so we are like set up for Tenet. Tenet speaks an easier language. Okay,
good to know. Because the only other review that I've heard from someone in a Discord in a Discord server that I'm in was just like, it's a lot.
it's very much.
Yeah. So
and
good.
I was just distracted by the fact that it is a movie. Oh boy, I get to see a movie again. Jack came out and met me. This is the first time I'd seen Jack in person in like over 6 months. Her and her mom are parked in their car next to me.
That's
it's
fun.
like, oh boy, I had to see a movie. I had to see a friend.
Jack.
Shout out to Jack. I'm just sitting in my car eating Twizzlers. I'm real happy. So the movie was kind of a blur. Like, Elizabeth Debicki was very good and very tall.
Okay. Good stuff. I started watching Deadwood this weekend. I'm like, I've watched the first 7 episodes now.
You always watch shows that I feel like pitching like way before I ever get there, and then I'm like, oh dang, Kyle already watched that.
Like, well, that's the thing, because like now it's like, oh, it's only 12 episodes. We can do that at some point. So yeah, you might see Deadwood here on the show at some point down the road.
I hope so. It's been on my to watch list for a long time.
Yeah, I'm enjoying it so far. So far, so good.
Good.
I was hoping they would be a little bit more creative in their cursing and stuff like that. It is still fun to watch them do that, but that was like the one thing that I heard. It's like, oh, they cuss so much in that show, and they do. I was just hoping for a little bit more variety, but good stuff. Let's get to what we're supposed to be talking about. Shametember, the fifth element. I am a huge sci-fi fan. I like time travel stories. I like cyberpunk stories, all of that kind of stuff. I've never seen the fifth element until now. This has been on my list of shame for a long time. Because, yeah, I knew this was like a classic sci-fi film. This is one of the ones you had to have seen if you call yourself a sci-fi fan. And I was always just like, yeah, that one, with Bruce Willis.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I haven't seen the first 4 elements. Do I need to catch up first?
Yeah. Is this some weird offshoot of Avatar? Who knows? But yeah, it's good. So I have finally seen this film, but that's kind of been my history with the film. I had seen it. I'd seen pictures. I'd seen GIFs. I'd seen things online. Though I think I did a good job of avoiding spoilers and stuff, because I really had no idea what this movie was all about. Yeah, I was like, oh, I was kind of not expecting half of this stuff, so it was good.
Oh, neat.
Had you seen this before?
Yeah, I've seen it only once before this. I watched it a couple years ago. It's one of my brother James's favorite movies. He's got all the little pop figurines for this. Like he's not a pop guy. Yeah, he's not a pop guy, but he's like, I want those ones. This particular set. I want my Korben and my Leeloo and my Ruby and my Jean-Baptiste Emmanuel Zorg all in a nice little line. So I knew their faces, and then I watched the movie. And I got to tell you, I went through an ordeal to see this film.
Oh no! What? So you kind of mentioned a little bit about what happened in our Discord.
Okay.
But what's the story here?
So I borrowed. It wasn't streaming anywhere for free. I didn't feel like paying the $5 to rent it somewhere. So I borrowed James's Blu-ray copy of it, and it's Friday night. I'm like sitting down to watch this movie. And the Blu-ray just doesn't work. Like my player's not reading it over and over again. I unplug the thing. I restart it. I put other discs in there. Those other discs work.
Was it like a region locked thing?
No, I don't think so. It was just like a regular steelbook like you'd get at Best Buy. And like it didn't tell me anything. It just said, can't load the disc. I tried like 5 times. Couldn't load the disc.
We need the other 4 elements.
Right, the player insists I go through this chronologically. I have to watch all of Avatar first. So then the next day, my mom drops off their old Blu-ray player because they just upgraded it, and the old one still works fine.
Okay.
And she forgot to bring the remote. And I thought, that's okay. Well, there's like a couple buttons on it. Maybe just hitting the play button on the box will work. And it wasn't working. And I'm like, great. Man. Now I have to drive to my parents' house, pick up the old remote, or pay the $5, which I did not want to do for a movie I had on Blu-ray there in my hands.
Yeah.
So I think I texted you, and I'm like, I might have to postpone this until later tomorrow, which we ended up doing anyway.
Not for the same reason, but still.
To drive to North County and get this remote. And then finally I asked my roommate, who has been saying on and off for months, I think I'm going to sell my Blu-ray player. I don't know if I want to keep it. I don't really watch it. I think I'm going to sell it. And I forgot where she was with that. And I was like 90% sure she had sold it. So finally I asked her, and she's like, oh yeah, I never got around to it. She's like, what do you have, a Sony? I have a Sony. So I was just able to borrow her remote finally. Nice. And watch the Tang movie.
That worked out perfectly then.
Why was this hard?
You made it, though.
I did. I watched it yesterday afternoon.
Okay. Good stuff. Good stuff. So your second time watching it, what were your thoughts?
I was able to pay closer attention to it this time. Last time, like, we watched it with friends. It was Christmas. Like, we had family Christmas, and then family Christmas was over by like 4:00, and a friend came over and we all watched a movie together, and I was like full of Christmas food.
Christmas
and I was
classic, The Fifth Element.
I don't know. I think we did a double feature. I think we watched that and Blade Runner. We might
Okay.
watch Blade Runner first, so I was tired and I was just full
Another
of like ham.
Christmas classic.
I was sleepy. Oh, well, after you've already opened presents, like you don't feel like watching Christmas movies anymore. It's like I've done it.
Christmas is over.
What else do I have to get psyched for? I did it. Now I need to get psyched about the future. Where there's a McDonald's
Okay,
I can go through with my pilot car that floats around.
Good stuff. So yeah, I thought my initial reaction was,
okay,
man, this is boring.
yeah.
But I like, now that I've had some time to sit on it and chew on it, I think I ended up liking it. But it's a weird movie because it, like, in terms of the plot, it's really simple. Like, there's not much to it. Like it's a good 90s action flick. Like, there's not much more to it besides that. But it's just a spectacle to watch. Like, there's just weird characters and weird and strange things happening. They all have these like crazy costumes and stuff, and just like there's so many like contradictions within this. And I'm just like, this is actually kind of interesting now that I think about it. Huh. Okay,
Yeah,
I can
think
see why people like this.
Yeah. The movie has some really interesting, very exciting sequences in it. And then a handful of other sequences that are sort of like exposition and like, you know, military dudes having tense conversations with each other. And you're like, okay. Now I see it might have not just been the Christmas ham that made me gloss over the first time I tried to watch this movie. Yeah, but like the chunks when it's like really exciting, it's very exciting, and stylistically always a delight to watch. I really dug the music in this movie too. It's got a lot going on. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Good stuff. So yeah, I think I ended up liking this film, but initial stuff was just like, I don't know, maybe it was a little bit overhyped. Who knows?
And the film does start out very different than what you think it's going to be.
Yeah, did not expect that start.
I think the images everybody knows from this movie are like just the futuristic outfits and like hairstyles for all the characters, and this futuristic city.
Leeloo.
Yeah, like the city, it takes place on like a future New York with all these flying cars. It looks like the future New York from Futurama.
Yeah.
If you've ever seen the opening of Futurama, it's just that, but French, I guess.
Futurama.
Yeah. Le Futurama. And it's like that's what you've pictured for this fun futuristic sci-fi adventure, but the movie starts in like the early 20th century. It starts like The Mummy. There's a guy
it's like an Indiana Jones
and like brushing dirt off of the hieroglyphs. And then the late Luke Perry is there drawing in a journal.
Yeah. Which I did not recognize him at first, and then I saw his name in the credits. I was like, Luke Perry was in this.
He's a little boy.
I think I would have recognized him, and I looked him up, and I was like, man, I didn't recognize him at all.
He's not totally evolved into hunk yet. He's just sort of like a grad school dweeb. As dweeby as Luke Perry ever could have been.
Sure.
Right. So it looks like you're just watching something, like The Mummy or an Indiana Jones or whatever, that type of movie. And then like they hit the wrong stone in the pyramid, like they turn a key, like they discover the wrong hieroglyph, something like that. And then all these big, scary, weird alien dudes come walking in. It's like, oh, okay, this is where the movie really starts.
Yeah, and then there's a big time jump and stuff.
300 years later.
Yeah.
No more Luke Perry. He's only in the prologue. He doesn't return in 300 years in the future, eating at a future McDonald's.
But yeah, so let's do a synopsis for people who, like me, may not have seen the film. And then we'll get into housekeeping and spoilers after that. So, yeah, so it like we said, it starts kind of. I feel like saying ancient times, but I don't know if that's exactly the right word.
By
It's
ancient times, we mean like 1924.
Sure, yeah, right.
But they're in an ancient building.
Yeah, and they're in ancient Egypt or something like that. Yeah, it just has this real like Indiana Jones vibe to it, kind of biblical as well. And yeah, they are studying these hieroglyphics, and it's kind of depicting this tale or this story of the Egyptians bowing down to these godlike figures, and they don't really know what they are, and that there are these 4 elements that kind of appease them or like something. You're not exactly sure, but they're like, there's 4 of these things, and then as they're studying it more and more, they finally realize that there's a 5th one that they didn't know about yet. In the midst of all of that, that's when these aliens come, and they're like, in like 100 years or so, you guys are about to be destroyed. So you need to protect these things and wait for the time, and we will be back and we will save you and stuff like that. And that's when we get that time jump 300 years in the future. Earth is still here. We have flying cars. We still have McDonald's.
Yep, the McDonald's is very important to me.
Right? Yeah. And yeah, and I guess they recovered a piece of this alien. Is that what it was? The one that got stuck in the pyramid? I was a little bit unclear on that, but they recover this like body part of one of these like ancient alien beings, and are like, hey, we have the technology to now kind of clone this or like make this new being
like see what this being originally was. Like, we've got like a foot bone, we can make the whole thing now with a 3D printer.
Right, yeah. So that's what they do, and they end up making Mila Jovovich. So that's how she got her start.
Is this her first film?
Actually, I don't know. I don't know if it's her first film, but she is what appears in this thing. She has no idea where she is or how to speak. She speaks this weird alien thing, and she goes on the run. They are trying to track her down, and she ends up in the taxi cab of one Bruce Willis, playing Korben Dallas. And he's just kind of a Joe Schmo. He's a regular John McClane,
Well, not exactly. Well, I guess kind of like a John McClane. Because it wasn't John McClane like a decorated soldier or special forces agent or something?
He was a cop. He was just a regular cop. In this, he's not a cop, but he's still just that regular guy.
He was an extremely decorated special forces agent. I think he got too caught up with the work. His wife left him. He's like, I got to leave the work. I got to get a fresh start in life. I'm going to drive a cab. So he's just driving a cab around, and it seems to not be going well.
Yeah. Yeah, and so then he ends up with this runaway, and she's asking for his help, and he decides to help her, and that's how he gets roped into this adventure, starts running from the cops, ends up taking her to this priest, and that's when he kind of finds out about these aliens and the end of the earth, and he just starts getting mixed up in this big galactic adventure, and ends up having to save the world. So there you go. Does that about sum it up in terms of summary plot synopsis?
That's a good start. I feel
okay.
Yeah, I feel like if somebody's hung on with us long enough, they already know what the plot of the movie is.
There you go. So I'm looking at Mila Jovovich's Wikipedia page. Her debut professional film role as Samantha DeLongpre in the romantic thriller Two Moon Junction. was 1988.
Wow.
An American erotic thriller romance.
Ooh.
Go.
She's also in Zoolander, which I coincidentally watched earlier this week. So,
I've seen Zoolander. I don't know if I knew that she was in that too. I only know her from Resident Evil.
She's that tough lady who's on Mugatu's team. She's kind of the enforcer. Right?
It's been so long since I've seen Zoolander, so I have no idea.
Well, I'm questioning myself.
Let's see. Control F. Was she in? Does it the film?
Oh yes,
Zoolander?
That is her. That is her. What an incredibly specific actress to wander into watching twice this week.
There you go. Good stuff. Yeah, that about wraps us up for the summary. Let's get into some housekeeping, and then we will move on to spoilers and such. If you guys did not know, we have multiple podcasts here at the Whatnauts. You guys can find out more information on our website, thewhatnauts.com, or your favorite podcasting platform of choice. One of those podcasts is Crossplay, which is our video game podcast that we've been doing for 40-something episodes now.
Heck.
Yeah, but we just brought on 2 new hosts to help out with that. So we have a 4-man crew on that have joined the Whatnauts, and we all had our first podcast with all of us just yesterday. So be on the lookout for that one as well. That was a lot of fun. And yeah, hopefully maybe one day we'll get them on the review show here. We'll have them on the captain's log and stuff like that. So be on the lookout for all of that stuff. But if you like what we do, patreon.com/thewhatnauts is where you can support us for as little as $1 a month. We have a $3 tier, which has all kinds of exclusive content, which you can check out. And we would also like to give a big shout out to our Patreon supporters at the $5 tier. So thank you, Sam, for helping us out and supporting us. You mean a lot to us. So thank you.
Thank you.
So okay. Guess that means it is time for spoilers. All right. Here we go. Let's dive in. I think the first thing that I kind of want to talk about is this idea of contradictions in the film. I think that's what I'm kind of starting to notice in this film as I think about it more. Because yeah, all of the stuff that I had heard about this film, or like why people liked this film, was like the fashion and the style and the way things look, and that kind of goes to imply that there is what's the right word for this? There I don't know, like in sci-fi you have like 2 extremes, right? You have the real glossy, smooth, like stark white walls and high fashion and stuff like that. I was expecting more of that, but this took the route that is more cramped and dirty, and things seem lived in, and they have the same car for 20-something years, and that's it, right? Like that's their life. Like he gets in that cab, and it looks like there is just no space in that cab. He goes home, and his apartment is the size of the room that I'm in, like right now. There's no room, and I like that, but I guess I didn't really realize that was in there. I think that's just one of the like at the like surface level, like here was what I was expecting based on what I was told, and here's what I got instead, right?
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. Yeah, for a movie that is heralded for such innovative styling, a lot of the settings you're in, a lot of the like props that it uses are really clunky and old.
Yeah.
Like Like the cars, yeah, they're
Which is not a
flying
bad
around, but like the cars are flying around, but they've got the body style of like an old Studebaker. Like they're boats, like they're huge,
Yeah.
clunky things. Like Korben Dallas has this tiny little efficiency apartment. He's always taking phone calls. Like that's something I realized. Like there's no video phones. This isn't a movie with any holograms in it. Like it's not that kind of a future. It's like his mom still calls him on the phone to complain about classic mom things, but it's just that she lives on the moon and she's talking to him. And then she's calling him while he's flying a car around.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, like it's that stuff. I think we for sci-fi films too, sci-fi is often like speculative fiction. It's more philosophical. It's making you question philosophical things or moral conundrums, or like giving words of warning to like, hey, if we keep going down this path, you know, here's what's gonna happen. This is almost not that. It is more fantasy in that sense, and I think it's also more of an action film than a lot of sci-fi films tend to be. At the same time, you also don't see sci-fi films you don't see them often be comedic, because again, they're very pensive, and it's like, aliens. Are robots people too? What is gonna happen if we invent time travel? Oh no.
This is much closer to a Star Wars than it is to like a 2001.
But even Star Wars has some comedic moments, but I wouldn't say it's a comedy.
No.
Maybe the more recent ones have some more comedic stuff, but like I really wouldn't describe that as a comedy. I think this I still wouldn't necessarily describe this as a comedy, but I think this is closer to that.
The comedy might be
Wars.
like the third or fourth genre label that a streaming service puts on this movie.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah.
Because just like not even comedy in like, hey, funny joke, but just like the absurdity of stuff.
Yes.
Like there are just some absurd things that happen. Like Chris Tucker in his outfit and his like that role is just absurd.
Right.
The whole thing about what's his name? I'm Korben Dallas. I'm checking in to my flight.
Right.
I won the lottery. It's like you're the third person to do that. It's like
right. I do kind of wish, like, I loved the sequence in this movie. So Korben's apartment, he has this like kind of Murphy bed that like slides in and out from the wall.
Yeah.
And like when he's done, when he wakes up in the morning, the bed slides back, like the mattress gets like pulled up, and a new mattress, an entirely new bed sheets, and everything is laid in its place. Yeah, it's like in a bowling alley, just replacing the pins. Like that's what his apartment does. And like he's got this fridge, and then like that fridge like slides down, and then on top of that is like a sink and a washing machine.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's like this cramped, it's like a tiny house, but the sci-fi metropolitan version of a tiny house where everything's something else. Everything moves. You spin it, it turns, it goes up a level, down a level. It's something else. And these space officers of some kind are coming to him saying like, we need you on this mission. You were our most decorated special forces agent. We know you're retired. Please, you have to help us with this mission. And then somebody else Leeloo comes and knocks on the door, and he's like, I don't want her to see me with you guys. So he shoves all of them in his fridge, and then like the fridge like goes down, it descends, and it gets replaced by like the washing machine or whatever. So just the comedy of, I can shove all three of you adults in my fridge. You're going to disappear. I'm just going to shove you down into the walls. And then I'm going to pull you out at the end of the movie, and you're all going to be frozen. Like, he shoves Ian Holm into his bed. And then at the end of the scene, you hear muffled screaming.
Underneath the new thing.
Right. He's been layered in plastic. I want that to be an entire extended sequence in another movie. Like, it's good here, but I want more of this.
Right.
I want an entire comedy movie set in this version of New York City in this time, where I get like the comedy of errors version of that entire scene, and it goes on for like 20 minutes, and it's a real set piece.
I think this would be a ripe property for expansion somehow.
Yeah.
Not necessarily sequels. I don't know if you necessarily need to touch this, but yeah, just like something set in the world of the fifth element.
Yeah, I just want to
nice
see
to see.
I just want to, like, it's less the characters. I want to see this setting again.
Yeah. So I think it's worth mentioning, because we haven't mentioned it yet. This film was directed by Luc Besson, with the screenplay also written by him, as well as Robert Mark Kamen. This was a story that Luc Besson started creating when he was like 16.
Aw.
And I guess he had seen Star Wars around that same time, and he was wanting to make I guess like a sci-fi fantasy epic of his own, but couldn't make one until he made this. But yeah, then we've mentioned the fashion, and all of the costume design was by Jean-Paul Gaultier, and then a lot of like the art direction and the set stuff is made by Mobius and Jean-Claude Mézières. I'm not sure how to say his name there, but you guys might know their work from comics and stuff like that. I know Mobius's work, and yeah, they do a lot of sci-fi stuff, and I think you can really see that in the art direction of this film, and it's just like it's beautiful stuff, despite it also being like small and cramped, and it's fascinating to see this stuff in real life and not on a comic book page, because that's also exactly what it looks like too. It looks like a comic. So yeah, it's something that I want to see more of down the road, if they can explore that somehow, some way.
Yeah, when you mentioned it looking like a comic, I was reminded of that panel or page, however big it is, in Scott Pilgrim, where it labels everything in Scott and Wallace's apartment.
Sure, yeah.
Like, I want that same panel. Just tell me what everything in Korben's apartment does.
Yeah, like I like that stuff. Like that's another thing that sci-fi films often do, is focus on like the consumerism and these big corporations and these fancy gadgets and things like that. And this doesn't, like, it has that stuff in there, like you said, like we're kind of fascinated by this bowling pin style make your bed thing. Like, that's an interesting thing, but it has nothing to do with the film, right? Like, it's just like, oh, that's neat, okay,
yeah. And this,
show me more, you know.
I feel like this is reflective of the tone of the movie, because you were talking about sci-fi as a series of like cautionary tales and warnings and like pensive thoughts about the future. This is a world that isn't a utopia and also isn't a dystopia. We don't get the sense that there's any specific looming world issues at hand. Like, there doesn't seem like there's a larger problem outside of anything than what's immediately happening.
There very
to
well
our particular
could be. It's just not a part of, this fiction here. So
yeah, and I don't know if I can name another property quite like that, where it is just this straightforward, simple, it's a world, it's a future. And, there aren't cities on fire, and there's also not like a robot butler who solves all your problems. It's just like right down the middle, plain old life.
I'm thinking of like a modern day trailer for this film, and you know how they do that, like in a world where, and then they like say something like where slavery is blah 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 blah. You know, it's like this would just stop there. In the world.
Yeah, it's a world.
Yeah, in a world.
It's like in a world where cars fly.
McDonald's still exists. One man must save the world.
Right, like the McDonald's still existing doesn't seem to be any kind of a commentary on it. It's
Not
just
at all. Yeah.
we still have McDonald's.
Yeah. Good stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Characters. What did you have a favorite character that you wanted to talk about? 'Cause there are some characters in this film, and I mean that in more than one way.
I need to talk about all four leads. Where do you want to start? I need to tell you a story regarding Jean-Baptiste Emmanuel Zorg.
Pick your poison. Let's start with that one then.
Okay. All right. So Jean-Baptiste Emmanuel Zorg is the villain of this movie, played by Gary Oldman. And every time I forget that he's doing a Southern accent, I'm shocked. Like I said, I've seen this movie
I was not expecting that at all.
I didn't remember the plot, but I should have remembered that. No, it was an absolute shock again when he starts talking.
It's wild. Yeah, I did not expect that.
What a weird performance he's doing. I was watching him, and I also swear he's blinking less than a normal person. Like, Gary Oldman is giving it his all.
Probably is. Like, that's
he's giving it his all to make this role just unsettling.
Someone out there, please count the number of times Gary Oldman blinks in all of his films. I tried to do a staring contest with him, and like I blinked more than he did. Which might be like an actor's training. I don't know if they teach you that in acting school, how to just blink less, because maybe it's distracting. I don't know. Or maybe this is like a private personal skill of Gary Oldman. Like he goes to parties and he's like, watch me not blink. So I have this book that's on my bookshelf back here. It has a bunch of graphics, and it's all based on comics and stuff, like the percentage of like superheroes with red in their costume versus blue and stuff like that. It has a list of like within the first like however many issues of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, here's all the pizza toppings that they got, and it's just it's a bunch of like fun information. I feel like they could make their like another version of that book, but just like all like weird facts that Gary Oldman did to get into his roles. Like, here's the number of times that he blinked in the Fifth Element. I need it for
just all like real strong method actors. Like, give me just like an educational poster of weird stuff Daniel Day-Lewis has done.
Great. So funny.
Okay. So in this movie, Jean-Baptiste Emmanuel Zorg, I think he only says his full name once, and most of the time they just call him Zorg, but I have to use the full name.
Which, how come that name is so popular in sci-fi? You get like Zurg in Toy Story. That's also in some video game like Warcraft or something. And yeah, now we have Zorg here. Just off by one letter. There.
Well, there was an early computer game named Zork. Maybe these are just all spin-offs of Zork.
Xenon of the 21st century or whatever that show was, right?
Yes. One of our finest decoms. So Gary Oldman's hair. So he's this black hair, and he has it like shaved down to like a patch in the middle of his head, and it's long, and it's like all swept over to one side.
It's
and
a
then
mohawk,
he's wearing,
but it's not like spiked up and gelled. It's just like
it's laying, and it's also a mohawk that's just like a like an oval on top of his head. Right. It's not like the sides are cut down or it's long on top. It's just like, here's one oval on the top of my head, and all of those hairs are like 5 inches long. And he's also wearing like a weird plastic headpiece around it with a hole in it that his hair flips over.
Which I kind of like.
So several years ago, I had just started working in the department I'm working now. Like I didn't hardly know anybody yet. And we were in a different office where we had like legit cubicles. So we didn't get to know each other very well. Like I'm kind of walled off from everybody else. We're all separated. And one of my coworkers, I didn't know much about this guy, just sort of like a quiet, chill, unassuming guy. He comes in one day with that haircut.
Oh, God.
And I didn't know how to ask him about it. And I didn't recognize it immediately. It wasn't until like months.
What happened there, buddy boy?
I could have sworn my guess at the time was, did you lose a bet? He comes in with this haircut. It's immediately so weird. And he's just like he's wearing like cargo pants and like a polo shirt, just like normal. He's just like a normal, quiet, unassuming guy, right? Mm-hmm. He just comes in with that, doesn't say a word. Nobody's talking about it. I want to ask about it, but like, I don't know this guy. I don't know how to say, hey, Dustin, I finished those journal reports for you. Also, what's that? Can you walk me through the choice you made here?
Yeah.
And it's not until like months later that I realized that's what his haircut was. It's the bad guy from The Fifth Element.
That's funny.
That is that was a pivotal turning point in my adult life. The day he came in to work with that haircut. Because it told me like all rules are off. What you think adult life is, it isn't. A guy can just walk in with that haircut and nothing changes. Life goes on. You can do what you want. Dustin can have the bad guy from The Fifth Element haircut. And like, as office life goes on, I get to know the guy better. And I ask him one day, like, what was up with that haircut? And then he said, oh, I don't remember that. What? No.
Did he not remember?
He didn't remember. And then it took him a minute. And he's like, oh, yeah, I was trying to learn to cut my own hair.
Oh, God. Like, how do you not remember a haircut like that, man?
And he's done it again. That haircut is shit. Like, he let it grow out. He let it grow out too long. He like shaved his head again. He had the Gary Oldman haircut again. He's had a bunch of weird haircuts, but like this is how I will always remember him, with the Jean-Baptiste Emmanuel Zorc haircut.
That's weird.
I haven't seen him in months. I don't know. Maybe he has it again. I don't know what he's doing.
Funny.
Maybe he has other famous sci-fi haircuts. Maybe he could have Gary Oldman's hair from Dracula for all I know. Just an assortment of and he vaguely looks like Gary Oldman, very, very vaguely, but enough to where I'm watching Zorg and I'm like, yeah, this is just Dustin, the space villain.
That's funny. Good stuff. Yeah. So Zorg was an interesting character for me. Because he is the closest thing, I think, in the film to that like greedy capitalist character that you see in a lot of sci-fi films. Like, I am the CEO of a major corporation and stuff like that. But again, this film doesn't really dive into that all that much.
No. Yeah.
But he is kind of like this warmonger, just like, I'm going to buy a bunch of weapons and sell a bunch of weapons. And like, he's almost like an evil version of Tony Stark. But in space.
There is a nice scene where he's talking about the benefit of what he does. And he points to this like glass of water on his desk. He's like, look at that glass of water. It's not doing anything. It's just sitting there. Nothing's happening. He's like, now if I knock off the glass of water and like the glass falls to the ground, it smashes, there's water spilled everywhere. All these tiny little robots come out from like a door in his office, and they all show up, and like one's vacuuming up the water, and like one's sweeping, and like one's bringing him a new glass of water. And he's like, now do you see how much activity there is after you destroy something? Like he's got a strategy in mind. Like, he in his own way, he's like, no, this is good for the world. Like, it's business, it's activity, it's something to do for people. The piece is boring.
Yeah. That I think is it's something you see in like war movies as well. Just like that character who's all about like, hey, it actually makes a lot of money to cause chaos and destruction and stuff like that. You were laughing at something. It looked like you were about to say something.
There's later on in that scene, so like he's got this desk with like all these buttons he can press, and like he pressed the button, and like all those robots came out to take care of the glass of water. He like hits a button and like a bowl of fruit pops up from his desk, and it's got like an electronic robot voice with it. It says bowl of fruit. And then he takes a cherry off the bowl and the voice says 1 cherry. Like it narrates what he's doing. And he eats the cherry and he's choking on the pit. And then he's like gesturing, I think, for Ian Holm to come over there and like hit him on the back. And Ian Holm's just like just like watching him suffer, just like all of your power, everything you can do, and look how felled you are by a single cherry. And like he's hitting all the buttons on his desk, and it's pulling up like all these other gadgets and all these other weird activities. And then like a pet opens up, like this little cute elephant pet animal just like rises up from the desk, like it lives in there, and it's just looking at him, just like, oh, hi. Like it doesn't know what's happening.
You know what?
It's like, my back.
You know what he kind of reminds me of in an odd way? The like president, or I don't remember if he was a president, but that one Mel Brooks role in Spaceballs.
Yes.
Where he's like, I just think of the absurdity of all of the stuff that he has
what's his
there.
name? President Scroob?
Yeah, something like that. And just that scene where he pulls out the can of air, you know?
Yes.
Like the absurdity of all of that stuff is kind of what his character reminds me of. Yeah, I mean, he's more like a caricature than he is meant to be like a warning of this stuff.
I just love that when you look up this movie on IMDb, Mel Brooks is listed as President Scroob / yogurt. God, I forgot about yogurt.
Yeah, Master Yogurt. Spaceballs, the flamethrower. The kids love that one.
God, I remembered it, but I forgot that yogurt was his name.
Yep, as well as
what
Pizza
a
the
film.
Hut.
Oh, I can never forget about Pizza the Hut. He's with me at all times.
Right? Yeah. That was good. Yeah, I liked his character a lot. He was fun to watch.
Yeah, very iridescent. I loved his shiny clothes.
Indeed. I think the one that the two that are kind of exactly what I expected was Bruce Willis's character as well as Chris Tucker's character. Just from all the gifs I've seen, like that was just exactly what I expected. And I think the combination of like to be honest, I found Ruby Rod is his name, is Chris Tucker's character. I found him to be really annoying, but he's an interesting foil to Bruce Willis's like overly macho but very stoic, like almost bland masculinity, right?
That's just Bruce Willis and everything.
I mean, yeah,
that's the setting he comes at.
But like, I would say in God, why am I blanking on the film's name? We just mentioned it.
Die Hard.
One. Yeah,
the action one.
The action one that he's in, you know, the action film with Bruce Willis.
I do have to say that if you just waved your hand at me and were like, you know, that film, the action one, it probably would only take me like 4 or 5 tries to get to Die Hard.
Yeah. No, in Die Hard, like he is the everyday cop, but I feel like he's more charming in that. Like he is more of a likable character, and in this, he's more just like he's not like paper thin. Like he's not just a piece of cardboard, but he's still just like it's a fucking wet noodle. Like there's not much to him, and that's what Chris Tucker just hates. It's like, just say something more than one word. Like
Because the character of Ruby Rod is also a performer in himself. He's like a radio DJ, this
Like
amazing
a
star
TV
radio
show,
DJ.
radio host, yeah.
Yeah, and like he's always walking around with like a headset mic. Like he's always talking about what he's doing, like for this radio show.
Performer.
And Korben Dallas has won this prize to go to this resort that Ruby Rod is promoting. And he's expecting like, oh, I'm going to have the prize winner, a special guest on my show. How exciting it'll be to talk to this person who won this award, won this prize. And then Corbin's just like, yeah, good to be here. You're okay. Uh-huh.
It's like, are you having fun? He's just like, yeah.
Yeah. he's so
okay.
upset. He's so upset
else?
that this guy isn't matching his energy. But his energy... I don't know how Chris Tucker did this. You know those YouTube videos where it's like B movie, but every time they say B, the film speeds up 50%? It's like somebody applied that to only Chris Tucker in this movie. Like he keeps getting faster and everybody else stays the same speed.
Like you've heard the saying mile a minute. This is like 60 miles a minute.
I don't know why they didn't hire him to be the new Micro Machines guy. Ruby Rod here for Micro Machines.
That's funny. But yeah, like it's just, like that is another one of those contradictions, right? Like you have the like uber macho masculine role of Korben. I mean,
and I want to say like
Dallas.
Korben isn't. You keep describing him as this like ultra masculine, and I guess he is only by benefit of he's Bruce Willis. Like the performance is really understated. Like he is not trying to be cool. He's not posing. He's not posturing.
He's not a man's man.
Like, yeah, like he just naturally is that. Like there's nothing different he's doing in his performance, and the character is actually, I kind of like Korben. I like that when Leeloo shows up. I appreciate Leeloo to begin with. I like that the movie agrees. 100 out of 100 cast members agree. Leeloo, very attractive. But the movie also goes to a lot of lengths to say she's not just visually appealing, she's emotionally endearing. Like, people don't just like to look at Leeloo. People also like Leeloo. And Korben feels this. Like, as soon as she shows up, like, he's not just lusting after her, like he's really smitten with her, like he likes all of her, and he's kind of a puppy dog about her, and that I liked a lot.
Yeah. So what I was about to say that is he is the like uber masculine character by himself. He's just kind of normal. He's not he is not the action star. He is not that, like he hasn't been he has not been elevated to that like uber status. He's kind of thrust in that role by circumstances, as well as in comparison to Chris Tucker's character, who is this like just ultra flamboyant, non-masculine, very like almost androgynous, but just very queer, like signaling, if that's the right word. Those two together like end up being this like yin and yang of just complete opposites, right? Which then makes Bruce Willis look a lot more masculine than he already is.
I will say about Ruby Rod that he's a ladies' man. He's flirting with every lady. He's like just having sex with one of the stewardesses on his space plane, and to have that
out the middle of the flight and stuff, and
and to have that come with the way he dresses and the way he styles his hair and the way he's literally wearing lipstick at one point. Like you don't normally see those things put together inside one person, but with Ruby Rod, you do. He's a lot of things.
Yeah. And it's just it's interesting to see that combination, because in a standard action film you wouldn't really see that, right? Or like he might be a side character, but you wouldn't really see him as like the like right hand man, if that, like he's almost at the like sidekick that like last half of the film there.
Approximately, yeah. Like, he's just around. Like, they just need to use his ship to get to this place. Like, he's just this peripheral character who's just on like a parallel journey to these people. Like, he's not protagonist or antagonist or sidekick or anything. He's just around and yelling for a while until you get to this final big battle at the opera house. And then he's like, okay, if I need to survive, then I'm with you, I guess. And it's only then that he falls into the sidekick role. Yeah. It's like, great, now I got to figure out how to activate this ancient pillar. I don't have any fire.
Yeah, he's an interesting character for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Let's jump to Leeloo, because you started to talk about her some too. Yeah, I mean, I like Mila Jovovich. I haven't really seen her in much besides the Resident Evil films, which aren't all that great, but I still like her in those films, or at least like the first couple of them, because they've made like 8 of them, I think. I don't know, God. But yeah, I thought she was an interesting character. I see here in Wikipedia, when talking about the themes of this film, that Luc Besson himself said he didn't really intend this movie to have themes. Like, it's not a big theme movie.
You're right. That makes sense. Yeah, the movie is like showing you a lot of things, but it doesn't seem like it is very much to say.
But at the same time, a lot of people have kind of noted, like, there's not very many women in this film, and when they are in there, they're just kind of background objects, and they're just set dressing for the most part. The main exception, I guess, would be Leeloo's character, who is, again, just like I to me, I feel like a weird contradiction of things, because she almost is the action star of this film, which is strange because you also have Bruce Willis in this, who is the action star in this film too, right? You know, and because she has this one moment where I think it's on the plane, or in that little bunk, and she's just like, "I will protect you." He's just like, "Wait, what? No, I'm protect what? No," you know. But she believes that because we've seen her fight, and she knows how to do all of that stuff, you know. And then there's that scene where she sees all the like American kung fu and martial arts and stuff like that. She's like, "Ooh, I like this."
She's going through this. She like wakes up after being just like a bone for a while. She's reconstituted into being a human being.
I love that.
Yeah, and she does have this like,
when you're a bone for a long time and you just wake up. You know.
Yeah, you gotta know. You gotta know things again. So she's going through this like Encarta encyclopedia program. It's just flashing through letters. It's like she thinks she gets hurt and she thinks she's about to die, and she's like, "I only got to V." And Bruce Willis is like, "Yeah, a lot of good stuff in V."
But I mean, like, she again, you mentioned that she is like, everyone basically says is like, "Oh, she's really attractive," and at the same time, like, she's sexualized to an extent, but not in a way that I feel like other characters were in this film, like the flight attendants or stuff like that. Like, she had enough of this, like, action star badass vibe that they kind of knew not to mess with her, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and like, she's so
our distance.
She's resilient, but she's not, I would say, tough. She's not cool. She does badass things, but she herself is not badass, you know? Like, she's very sweet and open.
Right.
And she just also happens to know many advanced fighting skills and could kill pretty much anybody with only her bare hands. But she's just sort of bubbly most of the time when she's not in peril. Oh, I
And-
liked. No, go ahead.
The thing that I was just gonna say is like, yeah, the innocent kind of bubbly mindset, or the way she, the way her mannerisms are and stuff like that. That's also usually seen on a character that is more sexualized. Just like, oh, she's this sweet innocent thing, and then some creepy man comes along. It's like, I want some of that, But yeah, like they don't really do that. They do to an extent, but there's also this reverence for her, I think.
Yes, you're right. Yeah, like when they first reconstitute her out of being a bone, like there is a sleazy space journal who's like, I need to take pictures of this for the records. And like the scientist who rebuilt her's like, look at her. She's perfect. But everything she continues to do, he's like, she's perfect. And like he says it like 3 times. And at the end, you can tell he doesn't just mean like, what a physical specimen. He's like, look at her go. Look what she can do beyond just look at how she looks. He's like amazed to see her like jump up and fight somebody.
Yeah.
You're right. And she repeatedly, like every time she needs to change clothes, like her clothes get dirty after a fight or something, she just pulls them off
right there.
Yeah, like she doesn't say anything, and all the other characters do like turn away from her, and they're like, she is perfect. But there isn't the moment where they're like, no, I'll watch. Right? Like it's not great, but there is an opportunity there that they did ignore, which it could have been creepier and it wasn't, which feels weird to compliment it saying it could have been creepier and it wasn't.
Yeah.
But yeah, like they do what is, if given the situation in the film, they do what they're supposed to do. They turn around and they're like, oh, okay, this is awkward for us. We don't know what to do with this.
Yeah. So the next thing I noticed about her, I guess we should back up and also say that her character is the fifth element.
It's her,
whatever that may be. Yeah,
and she's like the embodiment of love too. Like it's not just her; it's like Korben's love for her and their love for each other. So love is the fifth element, much like as Captain Planet taught us,
right? And heart. So like that's also one thing that I saw kind of criticized about this film, is that like she is this this specimen that it has power and she can save the world, but she can't really do that unless a man confesses her love for her. And so it kind of takes away this power that like, she still needs a man to do this. And even though he might not, be the one that is at the end of the day saving the world, it's actually her. But like from a more feminist perspective, like it probably would have served the film to just have her be able to do that on her own, and she's just kind of using him to. It's like, hey, you're a taxi driver. All I need is a ride.
I appreciate that at the end of this wacky, over the top sci-fi action film, like the answer at the end of the day is love.
Yeah, sure. Like,
water, fire, earth, air, love. Love is the last element.
I get that.
And like,
that I think is a good thing. Like it's something that because when I first saw all those hieroglyphics, and that fifth one in the middle was human shaped, and then they made Leeloo, and she was humanoid, right? I was like, oh, maybe the fifth element is the human element. I got it. And then as the movie went on, it's love. That's how you save the world. You save it with love.
And I like the climax of the movie as an echo point to something that happened earlier. after like Leeloo's been through like this huge fight, after she like jumps off the building and like lands in Korben's cab, and they go through all this whole ordeal, and she's like, take me to this priest, and he takes her to Ian Holm. She's passed out, she's completely asleep, and Ian Holm's like, okay, I need to talk to her, you need to wake her up, but like be gentle about her, like this is the savior of all humanity.
Yeah.
So Korben's trying to like jostle her, and he goes in for like the sleeping beauty Snow White kiss. And there's even a look on his face like, I don't know, might work. Like he's doubting himself when he goes in to try it. And then it works, I suppose. She wakes up and she says this phrase to him in her alien language. She's very upset. And then later, when he's about to leave, he turns to Ian Holm and he's like, what did that phrase mean? And Ian Holm says, not without my permission. He says, oh, yeah. And he's like, he really sincerely regrets kissing her while she's asleep. Not just as, oh, I like this girl, now she's upset with me, I've ruined my chance. It's like, no, that was the wrong thing to do to her. I should not have. And like he says it again later, like he says it in that scene. And then the next time we see him, he's like driving his cab home. He's like, he has like one more moment. Like he's still thinking about it. And I appreciated that the movie had a character make that mistake and then truly like recognize what was wrong, regret it, and like try and do better about it. And I like that we have this fairy tale thing of, no, you don't just give her the Snow White Sleeping Beauty kiss. That's not how this works. But at the end of the movie, when he's like, both of them are like fully open and engaged with each other, and they're having this like mutual discussion about love. Love is the saving element there. Yeah. Like all this goofy fairy tale stuff can be real and can be potent if you meet each other at equal ground and like you're sincere and open and honest about it.
Indeed, yeah. I think to kind of play an opposite perspective of that is, it does kind of flip the normal gender roles there, that like, she is still the action star. She is the one that will save the planet, and the guy can be there too, and he can still be an action star, but he's just basically there to support her and be the love interest for her. But it's also a weird thing because the movie is filmed following Bruce Willis's character most of the time, so it's because
he's like a whole guy, and Leeloo is not an entire person yet.
Yeah, it's a weird mix of things. It's like, well, it's this, but it's also this, and it's this, and it's also that. It's these strange contradictions within the film that I think ends up making it something worthwhile.
Yeah, and let's talk about the visuals for a bit. What were some of your favorite visual elements of this movie?
To me, I think the aliens at the start, because they don't really come back again. They say they are, and then I think, do we see them again at the end? I don't remember.
I think so, but like it's not exactly the same form, or we don't see as many of them. Like their real showpiece is at the beginning with Luke Perry and that pyramid.
They are such a clunky design.
Oh, but in a great way. Like they're purposefully clunky.
Like it's not what you would expect from like Alien or some kind of like robot thing. It is just the most gaudy thing. It is big, it is pointy and spiky and round, and there's like jewels adorning it. It seems like it's such an odd design, but that's kind of what I expect from Mobius. Of just like that looks like his artwork. That looks like something he would make, and I was just like, I like this. This is really cool. But at the same time, it's like I also kind of thought those were the ugliest things in the whole movie. Like they're so ugly. I love them. They're great.
I love all the costumes. I love what an orange movie this is.
Oh yeah.
Like Leeloo's got her orange hair and she's wearing like the weird plastic orange suspenders later in the movie. Bruce Willis looks great in that orange tank top. That's why I wore one today. I'm hoping to get that good Willis style. I wish that would come into fashion. I wish that became I wish that became just like a standard item in menswear. Just like just the Korben Dallas tank top with the vertical bands on the back of it.
There's some people that can pull stuff like that off. I will be the first to say I am not one of them. I would never be able to pull something like that off. But yeah, the passion in this I think is just, it's beautiful to look at.
I like the Floston Paradise, that resort they go to at the end, has a lot of really classic architecture. Like, it looks like just a regular beautiful high-class hotel and a beautiful high-class opera house.
That was something I took note of, and the thing that stood out to me is the more like Hawaiian and Samoan cultures that were there, which is not something you typically see in sci-fi stuff. I was like,
yeah,
I like that. Like, let's get some more like island Pacific Islander flavor in sci-fi, because that would be neat.
Yeah, and it's another echo of like the McDonald's thing. Like, no matter how far in the future you get and how dramatically some things have changed, you may still like take a trip somewhere, and there's a cultural representative there to put a wreath of flowers around your neck. Welcome to our people. Welcome to our land.
Namaste.
Enjoy your stay. Yeah.
Like, that was neat. I really enjoyed that. And again, it's just like we've been saying with these contradictions, we see these like older styles of architecture and culture we get in opera, but then it's being sung by this alien in the like the most Star Wars looking thing I think in this whole
absolutely
film.
Yeah, she just looks like a cousin of a Twi'lek or something like that.
Yeah,
very like strong, 100% on the sci-fi scale. Comes this lady to do this absolutely classical opera singing.
Great
like, there's
stuff.
no twist to it. Like, the sound of it is completely conventional, just coming out of this magical space woman. And then I like how they wrap that up with Leeloo fighting those bad guys in the hotel room, and like the opera. Like, it's a very conventional opera, and then she sort of stops and does like a second song that is more like upbeat opera, and she's like dancing around. She's got these jerky like contemporary hip-hop dance moves to go with her opera, and then as that gets a higher tempo and gets more rhythmic, the action scene is mirroring that. It
just has some beautiful things to look at.
I mentioned
all of the flying cars look neat.
Yeah,
too. That was fun to see all of those things.
One of the best things in the movie, there's that man who in his boat restaurant who just flies up to Korben's window. It's like you order DoorDash, but the DoorDash is like an entire hibachi, and it flies up next to your window, and it's like, okay, I'm ready to cook for you. What do you want? And this person cooks for you, and you share a meal together, you talk, and then he flies away to some other hungry person.
So like stuff like that, the cop cars. I think the one that stood out to me the most was his taxi. Because, again, it's a flying car, so it's futuristic, but then it's this, like, hybrid design of, like, a sleek, futuristic flying car with a more classic, or not classic per se, but this, like, older style car that you might have seen, like, maybe more back in the, like, 40s or 30s.
It looks like the cartoon cab from Who Framed Roger Rabbit, but it flies.
Yeah, like it's almost that like Batman the Animated Series style of stuff where it looks more like 1920s, 1930s, but they also don't tell you what time it is it takes place in, so they do have other like futuristic gadgets and stuff, and that's what this looks like, and I like that kind of strange mishmash of
Yeah.
stuff that makes it seem timeless.
And like everything talks, but it talks in this like very stilted robot voice. Like nothing sounds like Siri yet. Like one detail I really liked is that Korben's trying to quit smoking, and he's got this little device on his wall that's like 4 cigarettes in like these little glass tubes, and he like breaks one out like when he needs it. And he's limiting himself to only 4 a day, and it has this reader board, electronic reader board sign that says, "I commit to quit, only 4 a day." And like there's a robot voice that says this, like, "My goal is to quit smoking." I like that as a physical piece, like an appliance he has screwed onto his wall, and it talks to him. And we've thought that far into the future, but it still sounds like the voice of a calculator.
Yeah.
Like it's not a woman's voice. That's a several degrees removed robot woman. Also, the cigarettes in this movie were like 70% filter. I don't know why the cigarettes look different. I couldn't see the purpose behind that. But yeah, those are futuristic, I guess, as well.
Yeah, that makes sense. Here's a fun fact kind of about this film that I'm just writing right now. Apparently, Alejandro Jodorowsky, I don't know how to say his last name. Jodorowsky, there we go. And Jean Giraud, aka Mobius, sued Luc Besson after the film was released, claiming that the fifth element had plagiarized their comic, The Inkall. Giraud sued for 13.1 million euros for unfair compensation, 9 million euros in damages and interest, and 2 to 5% of the net operating revenues of the film. Jodorowsky sued for 700,000 euros. The case was dismissed in 2004 on the grounds of only tiny fragments of the comic had been used, and also because Giraud had been hired by Besson to work on the film before the allegations were made. Interesting thing that he worked on the film and then like sued, was like, "You stole my comic."
I didn't know Jodorowsky even made a comic. Huh.
Oh yeah, they have a series of sci-fi books. It's him and Mobius. I started to read one of them before realizing that that was like the 4th or 5th one in this series, and I was like, I need to go back and read the other elements first.
Yeah. Can't start at 5.
But yeah, it's called The Inkall.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know anything about Jodorowsky except for the Holy Mountain and his attempt to make Dune.
Interesting. Okay. Maybe we'll have to read The Inkall or something on the show at some point. But there you go. So that's about it, though. I don't know if I have much else to say about this film. But yeah, like my initial reaction to this thing wasn't as good as everyone said it was. It's kind of boring.
It is a feast for your eyes when it is operating at that level. When it wants to impress you, it impresses you. But then there are a lot of other scenes where it's like, oh, we're just still in this military boardroom where everybody's wearing just slightly futuristic clothes. We're still talking.
That stuff I don't mind all that much in sci-fi films, but yeah, just at the end of the day, it was just like very, very basic plot. Like not there, there's no twists. There's no, it's just like very standard action stuff. And so beyond that, I was just like, it's kind of boring. But yeah, like once you think back on the film and I think take a second look, there are some interesting things to talk about, which I think at the end of the day made me like the film, but I can see why people would also not like this film, because apparently looking at the reception of the film, there's a lot of people who are like, this film is bad. This film is not good.
I understand, and I think it is an appropriate level as a cult hit. I think it really, really works on some people and would be utterly off-putting to other people.
Exactly. apparently asked in an interview in 2014 if he liked the film. Gary Oldman stated, "Oh no, I can't bear it."
Yeah, despite the fact that he's in it, this doesn't seem like a movie Gary Oldman would watch in his personal life. I don't know what he watches. Maybe he just watches footage of birds, like just other forms of art that we don't get. He watches his own reflection as he stares at himself in the mirror without blinking.
Who knows? I think that's about it I have to say on the film. Do you have recommendations for people who might like this film?
2 years ago, when we first started the podcast, we did an episode on Luc Besson's later film, Valerian and the City of a Thousand Planets.
Which is also one of the inspirations for this film. So
yeah, that is based on some French comics that preceded The Fifth Element. He made The Fifth Element, and then later he got the rights to make a movie based on those comics. That movie, I think, is similar to The Fifth Element in that it looks very good. And there are some sequences that are thrilling, and there are other sequences that are boring people in boardrooms.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, there's a guy with his jacket buttoned all the way up to his neck, just giving commands to some people.
Yeah. For sure.
Yeah, I think that's worth watching. That movie didn't do well. I don't think it is well regarded. But watch it for the visuals. I think it's worth the visual time you spend with it. You know, if not for your mind, do it for your eyes.
There you
go. Give your eyes a treat that the rest of your body and mind and soul doesn't have to worry about. And I would also recommend, of course, Futurama. If you need more like flying cars and just like kind of everyday schlubby people and like a lady in a white tank top beating people up, Futurama is there for you.
It is. That is a good one indeed. Let's see. I think I want to recommend there's a comic called Black Science by Rick Remender, and I am blanking on the artist's name. Let me see. Artist's name is Matteo Scalera. And it's kind of a dimension-hopping sci-fi epic. The art is fantastic in this book. I highly recommend checking it out for you guys out there. But yeah, he's a scientist. He's a scientist, and he discovers how to hop into different dimensions, and he uses that technology to then like, okay, how do we cure cancer? How do we get the like newer technology and stuff like that? And it's kind of like a Fantastic Four kind of thing as well, of like the whole family goes to these different dimensions, and then things go wrong, and there's murder, and there's all sorts of stuff like that. So they have to fix what they did, as well as they all get separated and they have to find one another and stuff like that. So it's this big like intergalactic dimension hopping, let's go save the world type of thing with some great artwork. I would recommend that one. And let's see if I had another thing. Do I have a second thing? You know what? Go watch Star Wars Clone Wars.
Good, yeah.
I think that's a good one if you liked this too. It has the right amount of comedy, of action, of just heartfelt, emotional moments, and some great characters and aliens, stuff like that too. So good stuff. Melissa.
Yes.
Next week here on the show,
yes,
you and I are doing our end of the month special. We are going to be covering the first 4 volumes of a comic called Irredeemable. And I really, really love that comic. I have been wanting to pitch this on the show for a long time, but kind of the only way to have done this story is if we did it in its entirety. So that is what we are going to be doing.
Yeah, I will say
being 3 months.
Being a volume and a half into it, this would not have been satisfying to only read 1 week's worth of. I am excited to see how the entirety of this thing goes.
Part of what makes this story special is how this whole the whole irredeemable comic ends.
Ooh.
And yeah, that ending makes it worth it. But that is what we will be covering. It is a comic book by Mark Waid, and I do not remember who does the art off the top of my head. Let's see.
Me either.
Irredeemable comic. Does the artwork on this? Peter Krause.
Okay.
Does the artwork on that? Mark Waid and Peter Krause. Long story short, this is about the world's greatest superhero going bad. He did something, and he snapped, and he went bad, and now everyone else is trying to figure out why. What happened exactly that caused him to do this thing? And that's kind of the whole mystery behind this thing. So,
and he's so omnipotent. He's so incredibly powerful that like everybody on Earth is like terrified and like just running scared because they're like, we have no idea what could remotely damage this man. Yeah. We've never been prepared for this.
Yeah. Imagine Superman if he was overpowered and didn't have kryptonite. So that would be he went bad. So that's the whole thing. I'm excited to talk about this next week. We're going to be discussing the first 4 volumes. There's 10 total. So we will be covering this for the next 3 months here. But after that, Melissa, we will be getting into October, and that is when we normally do like horror movies and comics and TV shows and stuff like that. So did you want to go ahead and pitch the first horror series that we will be covering in October?
Yeah, so welcome to Spooky Month, Kyle.
Spooky.
So since we've got 2 weeks until we'll be recording this episode, I went with 3 spooky TV shows, since we'll have a little bit more time to watch them. Pitch number 1 is, I think, the quickest turnaround from you denying something I've pitched you to me trying to repitch it to you.
Okay.
I think I tried to get you to watch this maybe 2 months ago. It is the TV series Hannibal. This is... Yeah, from showrunner Brian Fuller, whose work we've seen before on Pushing Daisies and American Gods. He's worked on other things, other big things.
Good old
I was
things.
I was gonna name other popular shows, and I'm like, Wonder Falls. I'm like, listen, nobody remembers Wonder Falls. Like, you already named the 2 most recognizable. I think you already named the 2 most recognizable things he did, and this is the 3rd one.
Stuff and things, Lori.
Hannibal is a prequel series about Dr. Hannibal Lecter. More specifically, it is about a criminal profiler named Will Graham, who I believe, if I remember correctly, has some sort of an empathy condition where he can empathize very, very strongly with people. And that includes somebody who may have been a murderer. Like, he uses this to kind of get into the murderers' heads. And his job is incredibly stressful. And so Dr. Hannibal Lecter is the psychiatrist he goes to see. And
great doctor.
Dr. Lecter... Yeah, and Dr. Lecter kind of helps walk him through his cases and tries to hide the fact that... Except it's Mads Mikkelsen, so it's a very serious Danish accent.
Mads is good, though. He's also a great actor.
He's so great in this show. Lawrence Fishburne is in it. He plays like the head of this law enforcement team. One of the major conflicts of the show is that he can tell every case he puts Will Graham on is severely getting to this guy. And there's the issue of, do I have to maybe let a murderer run free because I can't put my best guy on the case because this will kill him? Like, he can't take any more of this. There's the struggle of, how many more cases can I put you on before you just break, before we don't have you at all? It's a murder mystery show with the threat of Hannibal Lecter lurking in the background. Really interesting case of the week murderers and beautiful visual style. The show is so like lushly gothic. It's all in like rich jewel tones and dusky charcoals. The cinematography is beautiful. The music's beautiful. There's all these lovely artistic scenes of Dr. Lecter preparing a meal. All the episodes are named after like fancy French cuisine. This is a show I watched the first season of a couple years ago when it first aired, which I think might have been 2014 thereabouts. And I never continued it because it was a little too dark for me. But I think back very fondly on the style of the show.
Gotcha.
And I know you're a crime guy, so I think this would be particularly fun to revisit with you and see how you find it.
Indeed. I've heard nothing but good things, especially about season 1 of this show. I don't remember how people reacted to the rest of it, but yeah, I have heard nothing but good things about this show. So that's pitch number 1.
Yep, Hannibal. That's 10 episodes, and that's on Netflix.
Okay.
Pitch number 2. This is a comedy show. I'm going to give you a comedy break here in between 2 dramas. This is a comedy called Stan Against Evil. Have you heard of this?
I've heard the name.
This is a comedy show from last couple years. I think this might have premiered in like 2016. And this is about a man who is the sheriff of a small town, and his wife dies, and he retires. And then he learns that his wife had been almost like a Buffy the Vampire Slayer figure.
Okay.
Like his wife had been fighting all of these supernatural problems in town. And they're in like this little New England town that had like witch trial murders happening however many hundreds of years ago. So it's like there's 172 demons that run amok in this town, and my wife died, and now I have to figure out how to stop them.
She was the only one keeping them at bay.
Me and the new lady sheriff that I disagree with because I'm a grumpy old man. The new lady sheriff played by Avatar Korra, Janet Varney. It's interesting. We were making Avatar references the whole night. It's like, well, here she is. We have an Avatar in our pitches this week.
There you go.
This show is from Dana Gould, who is a guy who wrote on The Simpsons for a while.
I've heard that name.
He's a comedy writer at large. Okay. Yeah, I'm sure you've heard from Dana Gould somewhere. He's also a prevalent podcaster and podcast guest. So this is just a very goofy, campy, absurd monster of the week show. Hold on, let me read you one of the episode descriptions so you get a sense of what you're in store for.
Sure.
I took screenshots of this earlier. Okay. Stan's daughter Denise goes blueberry picking and comes home with a pet goat that turns out to be the Baphomet, an ancient goat-based demon who wants both Stan and Denise dead. All because somebody wanted blueberries. Like, it's just really absurd problems like that.
Okay, good stuff.
Yeah. Pitch number 3, we're circling back to a drama, and we are also circling back to showrunners we have worked with before.
Okay.
By worked with, I mean we watched a thing they did and then talked about it. This is also a property we've talked about before. Pitch number 3 is Dracula, the 3-episode miniseries from the creators of Sherlock. We talked about Sherlock as our first episode of this year, and we watched, as previously mentioned, Gary Oldman starring in Bram Stoker's Dracula last year. Okay. I don't know much about this. It's from Gaddis and Moffat, I think the 2 Sherlock creators. This is formatted like Sherlock. It's 3 episodes that are an hour and a half long each. And the little Netflix
made this.
Yeah, and the little Netflix blurb just says, the Count Dracula legend transforms with new tales that flesh out the vampire's gory crimes and bring his vulnerability into the light. I watched the little Netflix trailer for it. It didn't give me very much. It just seems like, this is Dracula. We're going to talk to the people in Dracula's life. We're going to get to know Dracula. We're going to get into his backstory and find out not just what he does, but why. Why does Dracula Dracula? I don't know much about this. I don't know much about this, but with the Sherlock pedigree behind it, I'm intrigued to see
that's an interesting one.
What those guys do with another famous literary character.
Okay.
Yep.
Those are good pitches.
Pitch number 1 is Hannibal, and then Stand Against Evil, and then Dracula. Oh, and that's also on Netflix, and Stand Against Evil is on Hulu.
Gotcha. Okay. I think I am going to go with Hannibal.
About dang time. Kyle, I was going to keep pitching this at you until you eventually picked it.
I felt like if I didn't pick it, look, the Dracula thing is a good runner up there. I think they're all good, but that one I think would have been my next pick. But yeah, let's go with Hannibal.
Yeah, I think this is a show you will dig. I think this is well regarded as a crime. Very interesting, specific, grisly murders. Yeah.
Kind of why I picked it, because I'm a big crime show fan, but I know that, like, also this whole story about Hannibal Lecter and all that stuff, like, that's often considered, like, great horror film, like the whole Silence of the Lambs thing, and what was the sequel that they made? That one, or I don't remember.
Is it Red Dragon?
Yes, that.
I don't know. I know it was made after Silence of the Lambs, but I gotta tell you, I don't know how the timeline shakes out. That might have been a prequel. I don't know. Maybe I can't speak to it.
But yeah, like I know that just the idea of Hannibal to a lot of people is really creepy and scary, and yeah. So let's do that. Let's do that. Good stuff.
Good.
So, just to recap, next week, first 4 volumes of Irredeemable. The following week will be season 1 of Hannibal.
Yep.
Indeed. Melissa, where can the people find you on the internet?
You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Wilkywit. That's WILKYWIT.
You can find me at Yo Kyle Springer on Twitter and Instagram. If you guys want to stay up to date with our podcasts, we are at the Whatnauts on Twitter. Go like, share, subscribe, especially subscribe to us on YouTube. I think we are at 87 subscribers right now.
Oh boy!
So we're inching ever close, and yes, we'll keep mentioning this until we get to 100. So if you guys want to shut me up, so that I don't mention this ever again. Let's get us to 100 so that we can get that vanity URL and stuff like that. Or I think that's how it works. But yeah. Once we get there, that would be great. So help us spread the word. We would appreciate that tons. But I guess that wraps us up here for episode 124 of the Whatnauts Review Show. We will see you guys next week. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for checking out our podcast. We hope you enjoyed it. Leave a comment down below if you guys are fans of the Fifth Element. And if you guys had a favorite character or favorite moment from that, or if you have cosplayed as Leeloo, let us know down in the comments below. In the meantime, go subscribe to our channel over here. Go watch one of our other podcasts down here, because we got plenty of them for you to check out. Might be an entirely different show. Who knows? I'm going to go get back to watching Deadwood Season 1, because that's what I'm doing with my free time right now. So, until next time, bye.